Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Developing the Social Innovation Ecosystem in Egypt event. While the technological frontier is advancing at a fast pace and innovation abound across all fields, a large share of the global population remain excluded from this prosperity. More than 40% of the world population lives under $2 a day. In Egypt, which is a nation of 84 million people, 44% are in range of extreme poor to near poor, which is 37 million people. Such inequalities lead to a rising global need and interest in promoting innovations in goods and services. This innovation will address the need and improve the welfare of the excluded due to poverty. Today, in this event, we'll be addressing the topic of social innovation and the need to develop an ecosystem for social innovation in Egypt. We'll do this by having the introductory speeches, and then we'll be having a session by Dr. Yuka introducing one of the framework about the innovation hubs and how to develop them. And then we'll be taking the main layers of the framework that's going to be introduced in this session, and we'll be having 4 parallel workshops to address those areas. One of them is related to the private sector, and the second is public-private partnership, and the third is education and R&D, and the fourth is innovation policy and supporting programs. We'll start now by the opening session. Please welcome Mr. Ronald Brender, the Deputy Head of the European Union Delegation to Egypt.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome on behalf of the delegation of the European Union to Egypt to all of you. Of course, also on behalf of the co-organizers of this event. And it is a great pleasure for us indeed to work with the El-Khayr Foundation in this event, but also then, of course, in the project. Now, the very important topic of this seminar has already been mentioned. It is developing the social innovation ecosystem in Egypt. This is indeed a very important topic for the development of Egypt on the one hand, but also, I would say unsurprisingly, in engaging, if I say in engaging, I mean the European Union's engagement with Egyptian stakeholders in working on this topic. It's also important for the relationship between the European Union and Egypt. Now, let me just say a couple of words on what we have been doing in the domain of science, technology, innovation, and how all this relates to your concerns, your interests, your preoccupations. Let me just say that, of course, we are fully aware of the vital importance of science, research, and innovation for the development of Egypt and also the relationship between Egypt and Europe, as I said. And innovation is key to creating new jobs. Innovation could create sustainable economic growth, as the experience with emerging and developed countries has proven. It is thus of immense importance to make every effort to create an ecosystem where governments, NGOs, research, academic, educational, financial institutions, and other institutions cooperate to support researchers and entrepreneurs to leverage their innovation potentials. So we are happy to be here today and to cooperate with Gezer and Mr. El-Khayr in their endeavors to support the innovation ecosystem in Egypt. And let me just say, we do not start from scratch. We have pursued our cooperation with Egypt in science and technology through a number of instruments, and let me just recall some of the main phases. The European Commission and Egypt signed a science and technology agreement already in 2005, and Egypt has science and technology agreements with many EU member states in place. And different science, technology and innovation activities such as collaborative projects, joint research funds, mobility schemes and networking have been implemented on the basis of such agreements. Therefore, that is a very important first strand, our agreement with Egypt, but also the agreements that individual member states have with Egypt in this domain. Now, at EU level, the EU has pushed forward cooperation in science and technology through its framework program for research and technological development. You may know the shortcut, it's FP7, it's the 7th framework program. This has been indeed a key instrument for the European Union to promote cooperation in the domain of research and technological development. And this is essentially an instrument, was an instrument for funding research in new countries, but participation from non-European Union countries is encouraged in collaborative projects. And it is important to know that Egypt is particularly active in the FP7 program. It's very successful. And the second push, the second strand, I would say, for our science and technology cooperation came through our bilateral research development innovation program, the RDA program as we call it. It stands, as I said, for research development and innovation, and it has had so far 2 phases, funded by the European Union and implemented by the Ministry of Scientific Research here in Egypt. After a successful first phase of 11 million euro, covering 2007 to 2011, and 52 research and innovation projects implemented, we have now decided to go for a second phase with another 20 million euro. Therefore, another substantial strand of our cooperation builds on this research development innovation program. And just to say also that the second phase of this program includes grant holders such as NGOs, research centers, public and private universities, SMEs and other public bodies. You will hear more about this RDI program and its outcomes later this morning. Now, we are happy to note that in this context, Mr. El-Khir is one of the grant holders, with a project aiming at establishing a social innovation cluster in Egypt to empower the bottom of the pyramid, that is to say, the excluded population. And that is very interesting indeed. Now, going forward, we hope for further collaboration. And now let me mention a third strand, which is the Horizon 2020 program, which was launched in December 2013. And it is the largest and most open research program in the world, with a volume of 80 billion euro of funding over 7 years. That's a very substantial amount of money for the European Union and also more generally worldwide for research. It's indeed the largest and most open research program in the world. And Horizon 2020 will be the main implementation tool for the international research and innovation cooperation strategy of the European Union. As you can see, the European Union strongly believes in international cooperation in research and innovation to address the challenges that society is facing. We believe that international cooperation in science and innovation will lead to better science, to a better valorization of knowledge, and also better social-economic conditions for humanity. So international cooperation in science and innovation is a strategic objective for the European Union, and this is why we are here today. Not only do we aim to step up our engagement with our international partners, we also want to make sure that we cooperate in those areas where this cooperation can add most value. Therefore, it's not just about cooperating, it's about cooperating in those areas where this cooperation can really add value, where there is a clear common interest and mutual benefit, and where the potential impact is greatest. And against this background, this conference is a great example of how science should be linked to society and how innovation should be derived from society's needs. The European Union is committed to working with governments around the world in a spirit of genuine partnership and also in close cooperation with civil society, as our event today demonstrates, with the cooperation with Mr. El-Khir Foundation and other stakeholders such as the private sector, and all this to leverage the potential of society, civil society, to support research and innovation. So we do hope that this conference will build networks and open doors for more cooperation between European and Egyptian scientists, researchers, entrepreneurs, and organizations. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And now going to my advisor of scientific research and innovation, Muslim Foundation. Mr. Reinhold Brender, Deputy Head of the EU Delegation to Egypt, Dr. Hiba Gaber, Research and Innovation Officer at the EU Delegation to Egypt, Dr. Ahmed Saleh, Head of Innovation Unit at the RDI Program, esteemed guests. Let me start by mentioning that I'm truly delighted that this event is taking place and it represents the true collaboration effort between the EU Delegation to Egypt and El-Khir Foundation. And this sets an example of successful cooperation between different stakeholders, something that Egypt badly needs nowadays to combat its mounting problems. Talking about the problems and challenges that Egypt is facing, it is quite clear that those challenges, and as a result of accumulation over the past 3 decades, those challenges have become quite complicated and consequently resistant to conventional approaches, and therefore innovative approaches are needed. And here comes the role of social innovation, as it emerges as the only way to tackle such challenges. But unfortunately, this culture of social innovation is something new to Egypt. But why do we believe that social innovation is so powerful? Simply because social innovation maximizes the output from each citizen, and this achieved through changing the way most people in society are regarded, and especially regard themselves. This is achieved by their involvement as participants in social innovation projects. Their primary identity becomes affirmed as citizens, not the role of consumers, which the innovation society ideology relegates them. As citizens, they take on the responsibility for participating in the process of constructing their society's future. An interesting fact that supports social innovation and the power of citizens is that globally, citizens have assumed a prominent role as a force for transforming societies. I think this has been very well recognized in Egypt over the last 3 years. Another important issue to bear in mind is that the power is now transforming to the consumer, not the producer. If you look at the user-generating content and the user development IT applications over the internet, you realize that there are now a shift in the power of innovation and the way innovation can be really disseminated into the societies. Social innovation is rising to the top of the international agenda. The diffusion of proven models and policy experimentation across the globe is accelerating. So what is social innovation? There is no commonly accepted definition of social innovation. However, at El-Khir Foundation, and because we are really very interested and focusing on the marginalized groups, we agreed to define social innovation as the application of innovative, practical, sustainable, business-like approaches that achieve positive social or environmental change with an emphasis on low-income or underprivileged populations. I meant to start by this brief introduction to explain El-Khir's position on social innovation as one of the most urgent tasks to support Egypt. El-Khir realized that future growth in Egypt as well and the well-being of Egyptians depend as much on social innovation as on the continuous stream of new technologies.
In addition, at الخير Foundation, we realized that during economic downturn, our foundation has no choice but to take on greater responsibilities toward the community. Despite the current trend of a growing interest towards innovation as a means to solve social challenges, there are still a number of barriers to be overcome. These barriers stem from the very nature of social challenges and their specificities. One of the barriers is the fact that social innovation is not one sector's monopoly. Some innovation appear in the public sector, others in the private sector, and others come from the non-profit sector. Social innovations are sometimes absorbed by a sector different from the one in which they were created. This requires a high level and new forms of cooperation between the different players, which is not always an easy task. And I think our workshop today and our work with the EU represent a new form of cooperation and collaboration between different stakeholders to boost innovation in Egypt. Another barrier is the presence of many and new actors in the social innovation ecosystem, which is challenging the current established innovation support institutions and instruments. And therefore, their respective roles in the social innovation system has to be reshaped so that they become an effective driving force of technical and social progress. الخير Foundation is playing a critical role in delivering services to individuals and communities, and it works with other partners to seek innovative solutions to complex social problems. What is unique about الخير Foundation is that it attempts to apply the suitable innovative solutions resulted from its Science, Technology and Innovation Department within الخير Foundation, and let other departments like education and social solidarity to benefit from the social innovations that come out from the Science, Technology and Innovation Department. The question that emerged here is what الخير Foundation role is. Since الخير Foundation's mission is to build the human capacities, and as social innovations improve society's capacities to solve their problems, social innovation is at the core of الخير Foundation's strategy. Actually, the الخير Foundation was established in 2007, and from day one we had launched a Science and Technology Department. But actually we had in mind that we have to establish a standalone unit for innovation. But this was a medium-term strategy, as we wanted first to have the Science and Technology Department well established, as in Egypt it is not common that an NGO funds science and technology. In 2013, we established the Innovation and Entrepreneurship Department at الخير Foundation, and over the past year, we managed to establish our incubators and accelerators at the Greek campus. They will be opened within 3 months, hopefully. And we launched our first call for prototypes in April 2014. We had 180 teams submitted to the competition, and we selected 12 of them. Actually, the capacity of the incubator is unfortunately only 15, but we hope that we can have other incubators all over the country soon. So we have 12 projects now selected, and they are ready to be incubated at the Greek campus. The total budget for those companies or for those teams is 3 million Egyptian pounds. And they will be supported technically and financially at the Greek campus. We also are interested in boosting the culture of innovation by working with the young. We are working with the school children, and we are working with the youth at universities on developing very simple prototypes for social challenges. This year we had the challenge of energy, because as you know, we all experienced the problem of energy in Egypt. And we worked with 20 teams. 7 of them were able to develop a very simple prototype for wind turbines. We also had a boot camp for school children to teach them how to work on scientific research, how to have critical thinking skills, how to acquire such skills. And now they are working on their first research projects. Actually, before I end my speech, I would like to express again my gratitude and my pleasure that we are working with the esteemed organization, with an esteemed organization like the EU delegation to Egypt on an important topic such as social innovation. Thank you.
Thank you, and now we
والدكتور هنا جابر the Research and Innovation Officer for the
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Bender, Abir, Heba, Sally. Thank you for inviting me for this event. You can see here some colleagues as well and friends, which gives me a good feeling that I'm not a stranger, so I'm happy to be here. My name is Ahmed Saleh and I work at the RDI as the head of the innovation department over there. I'll just give you a brief description of the RDI in case you are not familiar with it, and then I'll go through the details of our fund, which is the most famous thing about the RDI. The RDI, like الخير, started in 2007 by an agreement with the European Commission to promote innovation and entrepreneurship and promote the culture of development and innovation in Egypt. The main objectives of this program when it started is to strengthen the link between the research, development, and the industry, as well as enhancing the innovation and technology transfer culture in Egypt. So we, in addition to the funding, we provide also a kind of help in organizing events and related activities to promote the culture of innovation in Egypt. Also, the other objective of the fund is to facilitate the Egyptian participation in European research areas. These are the specific objectives of the fund. The general objective, as I said, is to improve the Egyptian research development and innovation performance. When we started in 2007, we had three components: the Innovation Fund, which I'm going to talk into more details, and another component was the RDIN, the Research Network and the Focal Points Network, and the third component was mainly to measure the performance and provide best practices on how to promote or how to improve the performance of research in Egypt. So the fund, at that time we started with the EU Egypt Innovation Fund, which had the budget of 6.8 million euros, and its main goal was to support the innovation cycle, starting from research up to the implementation or up to the application in the business, in addition to any kind of socio-economic benefits as well as the industrial benefits. At that time, we had only Scheme 1 and Scheme 2, which some of you are familiar with, big funds for projects related to projects between the research and the industry. It's mainly applied research projects, and we have small funds, which was Scheme 2 with smaller budget. We ended up at the end of between 2007 and 2011 with supporting of 51 projects divided into 22 for Scheme 1 and 29 for Scheme 2. Some successful stories of these projects are mainly seven out of the Scheme 1 in particular, the big projects. We measured somehow the investments they put into their projects and the kind of the return on investment for this. And we found that out of the patents they have filed and the licenses they have made and the products they are going to sell, they are expecting actually to have a return on investment by this year or by next year, which we started measuring backwards in 2009, to have a return on investment of about 40 million euros. As a matter of fact, what we spent or what has been spent on the whole projects was about 8.5 million euros. We only spent 6.8, and the projects participated with or co-financed with the other 1.7. So you can see the big difference in the return on investment of these projects. Some of the social impact of these projects, as you can see, some of them were related to subsidies the electronic one with the mobile wallets. Some of them were related to children, how to teach children in schools the creative thinking and innovation and new sciences as well. We had 2 projects, Let Me Think and Intonano. Some of them were related to the e-health and telemedicine, how to help patients in rural areas, traffic as well, energy projects related to providing energy to help in agriculture and irrigation. In 2011, we started a new phase of the Innovation Fund with totally a new budget from the EU. The budget has been almost doubled. Our budget at that time was 10.5 million euros. And we, in addition to Scheme 1 and Scheme 2, we added another scheme, which was the Innovation Cluster. This is the description of the 3 schemes we had. Scheme 1, again, starting from 200,000 euros up to 600,000 euros, and it was only 1 call at that time. It was in May 2012. Another scheme, which was Scheme 2, we started it in June 2012 as well for smaller actions. As you can see, the budget has been doubled here. It is 50,000 up to 150,000 euros up to 100,000 euros, which is double what we had in Phase 1 or RDI Phase 1. And the innovation clusters, which is much bigger funding, between 300,000 euros up to 750,000 euros. We received, quickly just some statistics about our performance. We received 646 proposals. They are divided into the 3 schemes. We ended up funding 11 projects in Scheme 1 and 13 projects in Scheme 2 and only 2.
So very briefly, we have visited hundreds of parks, clusters, innovation centers. In all of these countries that have been mentioned here, we have been doing projects together with local people. By now we have well over 100 cases where we have been working together with national governments, regional governments, management teams of these different parks and clusters, private companies, especially in the field of construction and urban planning and finding concepts to these environments. And perhaps to claim at least that we are a little bit different to many of the other companies who provide these services, that we also know in practice how to do this. We have been there, we have started science parks or incubation centers in foreign countries from zero, when there has been nothing, and then been building them for several years together with local partners. So we know in practice what it means to make this work. And before we then started everything, as any good consultant would do, we decided to write a book about this. So, as already mentioned, there are some copies of this book, and all of those of you who are willing to give us a little bit of your time and fill in the questionnaire, you will have your free copy of this book. And in this book, we present our framework and 7 case studies from around the world of the best practice sites. In this one picture, we basically explain the whole story. As former academians, it took 350 pages to describe this one pyramid that is on this slide. So we are talking about the idea that traditionally when we are thinking about innovation clusters or innovation hubs, whatever name they have, many people see them as infrastructure projects. So many times the decision makers are interested in urban planning and zoning and construction and all of that kind of thing. So usually what we get is the right-hand side of the slide. We get a very beautiful, nice environment for innovation. But from our experience, we know that it's not enough. We need actual concept, the idea, the action plan, business plan, all of these things to actually make this urban, nice master plan to work in real life. And we are specializing on the left-hand side of this picture. So this triangle pyramid model, what we have been developing together with my colleagues over the last few years, is basically showing what are the main elements that needs to be addressed when we are truly trying to create a manageable, workable cluster that will create good results. And it is a system, but it's a system of people. This whole pyramid is a people pyramid. And it has been excellent to hear these opening speeches here today, when most of the speakers are referring to capacity building, transfer of best practices, learning from the previous experiences of the other, and then to try to find the local solution to those issues that are relevant for you. This is everything what our model and framework is representing. I don't go into very much detail into all of these things. The basic idea is that we believe that you need to have all of these in the same system. You cannot take anything out, otherwise the system is weaker. The basic idea is that the pyramid stands on a national or regional innovation policy platform. And then on top of that, we either build infrastructures or we develop different kinds of programs which help this ecosystem to develop and this cluster to be stronger. The whole model is including the key players in this discussion. The bottom of the pyramid, it's usually public policy-driven topics related to the physical infrastructures and services in the country or the region, education, anything from the elementary schools to universities and so on, research and development activities, both in public and private sector. And then on the top of the pyramid is the private sector. The private companies and forums and foundations based on the way how to organize these activities. They all aim for doing and making real business. And usually when we are talking about innovation, we should somehow make sure that these two worlds meet and these two worlds somehow find a common ground. And usually we talk about public-private partnerships, which happen there somewhere in the middle layers of the pyramid. And this is the basic idea. We believe that in every country, every local region, city, all these circles which are behind this pyramid are totally different. And that's why we are not advocating by any means that please go and copy something from European Union or some of the countries there, or go and copy something from Silicon Valley, or go and try to find something from Hong Kong or China and take it as it is to Egypt. No, we believe that we have to study what the others are doing and what are the global best practices. And then we can try to transfer them here, but we need to find local workable solutions for this. So this is the basic idea. We use this model and this framework to actually analyze and evaluate what is going on in best locations in the world in terms of innovation. We have turned this framework to a measurement tool where we try to find out that what these individuals, what do these organizations in these clusters, what they are actually doing, and how they are using the available best practices to actually create the outcomes what we are expecting. So here, these examples are from our book and from our previous cases. And finally, I stop talking about our company by showing you this picture of the cover of our book. So basically, we have tried to collect the global best practice for managing the innovation ecosystems and hubs into one book, which will give you kind of a basic common language to talk about these issues. And I hope that you will have time to get to know this book.